now it is officially the question and answer time. Tom, if you'll help out.
So I read the draft proposal, and it says that the staff recommendation was to reestablish a 75-foot buffer around the island with year-round closure. And tonight you presented it as a 50.
That's
Could you
sure.
expound?
That's part of the process of us bringing things in and putting maps on paper. So 75 was the original proposal when we mapped 75, and it was out a little bit further. Our boating and waterways folks weren't too sure that they wanted to see signs that far out into the channel where boats are passing. They thought it was potentially a safety hazard.
So did they so did you decide on 50 feet? Like,
So
could,
we-
could 60 feet be okay with them, or 65, or 68 and a half?
Again, this is what we're proposing now. We are going to take comments. So if you think that if you're recommending a larger buffer and you would like us to explore that option, then we will definitely take note of that.
Okay, thank you.
So,
So and then I've got this.
just to follow on with her question, so it sounds like there was a inter-staff coordination meeting with the waterways folks and your folks. So I'm assuming that the waterways folks are willing to defend to the commission 50 feet is reasonable, we didn't think 75 was, or is that true? Am I assuming too much?
I think that they really are looking at the safety aspect of pushing it out.
It's the other way around.
Oh, is it that way?
For boating, they're looking at what's safe for boating,
For the
so someone
boats.
doesn't hit a signpost at night or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And let's see if I can keep moving
Then it
quick.
was-
Yeah, I think I had this gentleman right here.
Yeah, you want to help them out? Keep the jet skis away from there. I live in a senior community right next to that island, and there's other senior communities. And believe me, they respect and honor those birds. But there's the young people from south of there that come up with the jet skis, and that is a little terrifying too.
Yes, sir.
Could you vary that so that it's 50 feet on one side, but it's 100 to the north, or up the sandbar, and 100 south, and more out to the left there?
We have had some sites where we've varied it, so it's been a 50 to 100 foot buffer. So we'll definitely make a note of that and go back and
Because
explore.
part of that, to the left, you see, that's not navigable.
Right.
So why not take it out? And then to the north and south, whatever direction that is.
Yeah.
Lady,
Yeah.
I was going to say the same thing.
Okay.
And then in blue shirt, I think.
Yeah.
She got one. Oh, the gentleman behind you.
Mine, I guess, I heard something earlier, I don't know if the numbers were correct. You said something about 260 nesting pairs, and now it's down to about 100. Based on either previous data or other sites, what do you believe with the 50 or 75, however, the increase in nesting pairs, do you believe that, like, do you know an estimated number, or how many you think would come back from that?
We have no way to know. What we do know is that we have seen responses at other locations where we've done this, so that we've seen numbers go up and survival rates go up. So particularly wood storks are very sensitive to external factors. It could be the water level. It could be a lot of things that are influencing them. So we could do everything right and eliminate disturbance and not get a response. That's worst case scenario. We don't, but we feel like the disturbance is something that we can manage, and some of those other factors we can't. So of course, we'd like to see it go up as high as it was, but that's a lot of birds packed into a small space. So I wouldn't anticipate that tripling or anything. I wouldn't expect 900 birds, but it'd be great if we could get it back up to that many pairs, because we know the island can support that.
And I will add that the Bird Island in Martin County that we were talking about, the productivity data, so they posted it, and that buffer actually varies as well. In some places, I think it's as small as 25 feet. But the productivity changed dramatically from pre-posting to post-posting. So that instead of having just a few chicks that were being fledged, we actually had almost half the nest that were fledgling chicks, which is the big deal. That's kind of what we're looking for, is more babies getting out. So yes, ma'am.
How dense are you going to plant, so to speak, these signs? Like every 50 feet or every 100 feet?
That's a great question, and actually, so every sign that goes in the water, we have to have a GPS point for it, and I might let our law enforcement officer weigh in on this as well, but But our understanding is that it needs to be line of sight so that if an officer is seeing someone, that they can have a reasonable assurance that they saw, that they knew they were going between two signs. So there has to be basically two signs form a line, and the person has to know, you have to know that they were able to see both of them. So I don't think in this area that we will, I think a lot of times it's about 50 feet, but sometimes it might be further, depends again on the shape and the structure here. But we do have to, when we permit it, give the exact location for every single sign that goes in.
I think we had proposed originally eight posts, and our boating and waterways folks were uncomfortable with that. Again, it's their job to worry about human safety, keep us, consistent with that. So they really recommended that we figure out a configuration where 6 posts would do that. So we're working on that.
Yeah, and I do want to point out, the maps that you see tonight are really just a conceptual representation of what we're talking about. It's, I would not count on, if you got out a measure, that was actually 50 feet. It's pretty close. I think it's pretty good, but, we might have a little leeway there. But it will be finalized with their flight permit.
So you're thinking that a boater cannot see a 4-foot by 5-foot sign in such a way that you can only put 6 out there? Oh, I know they drink a lot.
Not all boaters. Are you suggesting more are needed or less are needed?
I'd build a fence around the whole
Oh.
It's funny you say that, because that's what I thought you said when you said posting, that you were gonna put
Oh.
like you do up north. Like, so they can't get in there.
And I have to,
If your original, as I understand you said, your original idea was 75 feet out, but you decided, and apparently because people wouldn't, at night particularly, couldn't see the signs if they were really 75 feet out, why don't you make the sign say, no entry within 75 yards, I'm talking about, within 75 yards, but have the sign 50 yards out? Would that throw off people too much?
that is.
It would give more leeway if somebody said, I'm not really 75 yards out, I'm 60 yards out, I'm beyond the sign anyway. Okay, give a little leeway there, but still put it.
You know what, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what I'm hearing is, and correct me if I'm wrong, we're concerned as a group about the maximum amount of protection we can provide and balancing that with law enforcement and public safety regarding, and I believe this is a slow speed zone anyway, so they shouldn't be on plane in this area.
Yes, I would like to know if there's a name for this island and exactly where it's located.
So it's just, no, I don't think it has specific, and we have called it the Myakka River Critical Wildlife Area, but the island itself doesn't have any other name that I know of. And it is, if you could go all the way to the beginning, it's a little bit less, I think, than a half a mile. So you can see the US 41 bridge up there, and then this is the island down here. That's about a half mile.
Isn't that development Harbor Cove?
To the north is Harbor Cove.
Yeah.
It's also Spice Islands, or the islands to the north. So these are the Spice Islands
right
up
in
in here.
Yeah, there's a rookery in there, we're just like the lake.
And there's actually a new rookery right there that just had birds this year that has about 50 birds in there now. And this is all the state forest, and the state forest manages almost all of this land and all of this land. And that's privately owned conservation land at this moment.
So this is like near Venice?
No,
or-
City of Northport and unincorporated Sarasota County.
Oh, it's Northport.
It's not far from here at all.
Yeah.
Up the road.
And, yes ma'am.
Well, to keep that map, that was kind of one of my questions. I've been contacting that area for about 20 years.
So I don't know if you heard the question, but it was with all of these other islands, why don't the birds go to other islands? And I think that is a great question that we don't know the answer to, which is what makes it when the birds decide that the island is important, that's what we're keying in on as well. They decided it was important, so we are hoping to protect them on that important island.
And they're happy, and we're happy that they're there. So we're not feeling compelled to try to move them.
are CWAs established on a scientific need basis where you say you got it in the community, or is it done based on like how much money the commission has
No,
to do CWAs?
it's really biological need is what helps decide it. And so that's what we were challenged to do, is to look at those places where we really felt like we needed to protect certain species in these small, discrete, manageable areas, and work with our partners to identify them, because typically we have done them much slower, so it might be a year in between each one that we've established. But the idea was maybe we can get a whole lot of conservation done at one time as opposed to doing them so slowly. It's what we're trying, but it is biologically based.
One of the factors in all this we should think about is the growing population and recreational use. And we don't want to stop recreational use, but I think it's important to show that, just to show that that's going to be another major source of people in kayaks using that stretch of the river.
So there's going to be a launch at Bob Johnson Landing when that gets developed. There's also already a launch at Deer Prairie Creek, which is just upstream from there, just a little bit further. So that'll give 2 launches into the area there.
Right.
Yes, sir.
If I see some injured bird on there, not injured, but fish line, I've already rescued 2 off that island.
Thank you.
I would just, thank you for your efforts, and I would just ask anybody that takes that measure, no matter where you are, to weigh the risks and benefits of that, because we're always cautious about if you enter and I don't know that it was nesting season, but if you enter an active rookery to rescue 1 bird, you may inadvertently kill or damage another dozen. So it's just something, it's an act that takes thoughtful, approach.
That would be something we'd call you guys and say, hey, we were just there and we saw a bird tag on, right? Oh,
Yes, and we would network locally. We're a couple hours away. Chris is a little closer, but we would pull out the stops to try to take action.
Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
Well, when you're setting up that launching area, and I hope you'll have some kind of a big sign that talks about the island, and those people to stay away from it.
The launching area will be at Sarasota County Park, and it'll have interpretation talking about the natural resources.
Yes, sir.
I live over on the east coast of Florida, and we have a number of spoil islands over there, one of which had a number of birds nesting on it for a number of years. Then all of a sudden, one year they were all gone, and the trees were defoliated, the mangroves. And someone said to me it was because the birds pooped so much that they killed the trees. Now, is that possible, and might that happen here?
Yeah, it does happen. We do see it with the really large rookeries. They can kill out the substrate. And I don't know what the magic formula is. This rookery has been around for at least the 27 years I've been here. So, they're doing fine. Other places we do see them kill out, and they are, they do move. I mean, sometimes you'll see them move an island away because they're taking a break from the island. It's terrible.
Any other general questions? Yes, ma'am. We've got 1, 2, 3. Go ahead.
Okay, so I understand that there's the possibility there will be sculling, that our county commissioners have been working on, and there's some competition going on in Sarasota. And as I understand it, the practicing would be happening on this river. So our concern is, do you see that as a problem? These are 60-foot long boats.
I think that just begs for the importance of taking this extra precautionary step. By putting a buffer out there, I think we reduce any potential for conflict there. So I think that this would help with that situation.
Okay, these 2 folks, go ahead.
Have you seen over time, looking at various aerials over the years, any change in size of the mangrove areas, island areas?
Not much. We actually did pull back and look at some of the mangroves, and I will say that sandbar appears to have changed size a little bit that's behind it, but the island itself seems pretty static right now.
Follow-up, go ahead.
Is there any consideration of alligators chomping on the birds there?
Alligators, I'm sorry, I'm just jumping. Alligators and birds have co-evolved for a long time. birds, a predator of much greater concern are things like raccoons that can swim like a fish. But when you have alligators in the water, it tends to discourage raccoons from swimming out to islands and back. So in areas where we have alligators, they do occasionally get the wayward chick that falls out of the nest, which again is another reason why it's really important not to disturb these birds, because when you have a major disturbance event and all the adults fly off, a lot of times the little branchlings, we call them branchlings, when they're old enough to walk out on the end of the branch, out of the nest, but not old enough to fly, can get knocked into the water. And alligators do their job of cleaning up anything that falls below. But it's a very symbiotic relationship otherwise.
So
Yes, sir.
with the increased amount of CWAs that are going to be hopefully proposed and passed, does the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission have additional funding to have officers to enforce the zones, or in training with other state agencies and federal agencies to make sure that they're aware of the new zones and how to enforce them?
So I would say, yes, we always work with our partners, and as we've mentioned, they're all state laws, so any agency can decide to enforce those rules, and we patrol this river in this particular case regularly anyway. There is an existing zone. So really, yes to both questions. Is there a request for additional money and officers specifically for this or one or the other? No, it would be part of the ongoing duties. I think, yeah, there was some hands over here. Yes, ma'am, and yes, sir. Can we do that?
When do you hope to have the signage up?
So, that's a great question. If our commission approves it in November, then we would really like to try to get our signs up in advance of the next nesting season. So, but the kicker there is that the great blue herons start in December, and we would have to get the permit to put the signs in and then actually do it. So then we have to weigh whether or not we can do it during that nesting season, or if it would cause too much disturbance, and we need to wait so that we're not disturbing the birds as well. So we'll be weighing it, seeing how we think it's going to go.
Yes, sir.
Are you aware of the even larger rookery on the Peace River just south of Liverpool?
Liverpool.
Oh, Liverpool is in the Peace River.
It's on the Peace River, yeah.
Like Shell Creek area, that
It's,
North of Navigator, right?
Yeah, no.
No, it's
No,
south.
no, it's just south of Liverpool.
It's an old phosphate operation 500 years old. Runs over there.
It's a large
Yeah, they can-
rookery.
a lot of rivers.
there is a big
That's Peace
Yeah,
River.
good information. I think, do we have another hand? Yes, ma'am.
Is the island to the right, or is somewhere over there is part of the forest too, correct?
Correct.
Is it the large island to the right?
That's, Chris, you were saying it's
I'd
the,
have to look it up. Part of one of those islands is owned actually by the Harbor Cove Association. But certainly, right to the south, that salt marsh area is kind of the low thing that has the tidal creeks going through there. That's definitely state forest. And then to the right is the marshy island just to the east or to the right of where it says Myakka River CWA. I'm not sure about whether that island is owned by the state or by conservation protection. So.
There is another one in that area, I'm just not sure on here.
Yeah. Any other general questions? Okay, I'm just gonna read off the names for comments. Bob Clark, go ahead.
I'm just speaking as a private citizen tonight. I used to be a conservation director for Venice Audubon. I sent a letter in and submitted that, and I'd like to amend that to encourage you to extend that buffer as far as you can in those areas where it won't bother the navigation. I was pleased to see this whole proposal come up because it tracks so well with the whole fact this is not just any river, it's the wild and scenic Myakka River. And just as homework, I read through that 98-page management plan,
Thank you.
which is actually pretty interesting reading. But time and time again, it kept talking about these words: protect and enhance the resource values of river area. It just kept saying that one time after another. One of the resource values is nesting / den sites. And in the copy it says, noteworthy nest sites along the Myakka River includes a large wading bird rookery located south of US 41, the one we're speaking of. So it not only is the wild and scenic, but it's a nesting area, and listed in there are all the different birds that nest there. And among them are 3 that are on the state list: snowy egret, tricolored heron, and white ibis. And then there's the wood stork that's on the federal list. I'm the chief compiler for our Christmas bird count for this area. And the bird count goes for Venice / Englewood. It's a big circle, and that circle takes in that rookery island. I didn't have a count for that day, but I'm guessing that those 2 species were when Chris and I were out there doing the bird count. But I look back over the last few years, these bird counts have been done for decades, all over the country, and we've been doing it for decades. The highest count of wood storks was 355. And I think in the last 15 years, that 355 occurred. In the last 3 years, 2 of those years it's been under 100. Last year we had a count of 123 wood storks. That's 123 wood storks in an entire circle that's 7.5 mile radius. So it takes it all the way up to the north end of Venice. So what we're seeing, though, these bird counts, you can't really do it on a micro level with a lot of accuracy and say, this is actually happening, this is a trend that's going to stand up statistically. I think it's fair to say when we've gone from 355 down to, in the last 3 years, usually under 100 wood storks counted in that area. That's saying there's a lot of stress on those birds. So anything that we can do to protect what's there and encourage more birds, the better. And a final note, I'm also a kayaker. And I like taking pictures. I'm not a great photographer. But as a photographer and a kayaker, I don't mind at all the fact that I won't be able to get any closer than that. The most important thing is the fact that we still have the birds.
Amen.
Is it Jono or Jono?
Jono?
Go ahead.
This is going to bring that next one.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm Jono Miller. I'm the current chair of the Myakka River Management Coordinating Council. So part of my comments are part of our official action. At our last meeting, which was in April 8th, we passed a motion that the Myakka River Management Coordinating Council supports the CWA reestablishment and expansion of the protection of the wood stork rookery on the Myakka River. And I've included the wording from our management plan, action 1.7, that says expand the existing inventory program to monitor nesting, roosting, and breeding sites along the Myakka River corridor to protect these sites from actions that may disrupt their continued use. So you may already have a copy of that, but I wanted to submit that. 2 other things. So I first saw this rookery in 1971. I was a teenager. I put my canoe in at Snook Haven. I took out on Sanibel. And I don't recommend crossing boat ground in a canoe. I've done it 3 times, and I think that's it. All right. But I'm sure when I canoed by there in 1971, I got too close because I was a teenager. I hadn't been in Florida very long. I didn't really understand things. And one of the problems is that the rule of thumb is you should not be so close to the wildlife that you're affecting their behavior. The problem is that people keep getting closer and closer until they affect their behavior. So having these boundaries, having signage that cues people or suggests to people what's an appropriate distance is really important. The other thing I wanted to bring to your attention, and this has already been alluded to, but since I had an actual study that documented it, I thought I would provide this to you as well. In 1992, the Sarasota Bay Estuary Program did a study of an experimental project to mark seagrass beds in Sarasota Bay. You're probably familiar that boaters will run through seagrass beds and scar the beds as they're slow to heal. And so they came up with this system of putting some buoys, and the buoys would say that it was a seagrass area and you shouldn't enter. And then they hired students to be on the shore with binoculars and watch the behavior of boaters. And what happened is the signs attract people. And in this study, they documented several areas where putting the signs out meant more people came to the area. And in fact, in some cases, more people entered the area. So I'll give this to you, and I can provide more data on that. But what I'm saying is when we put these signs in the water, kayakers are going to stop there, they're going to hold on to the post and wait for their buddies to catch up. People are going to want to be photographed with a sign in the foreground, et cetera, et cetera. So again, having an appropriate distance seems like a good idea. And just speaking personally, I like the idea that Bob and Wade, others have brought up of an asymmetric boundary, perhaps going out to the edge of the shoal or sandbar on the west side. And that would provide this would sort of help confirm or deny your inadvertent experiment elsewhere. If you had the 50-foot barrier or boundary on the east side and 100 on the west side, and you start to see the birds nesting lower down on the west, that would help establish the fact that keeping people away was enabling lower nesting. So those are my comments. Thank you.
Thanks. Maybe the sign could say caution, aggressive alligators.
Ann O'Leary?
Hello, my name is Ann O'Leary, and I'm with the Venice Area Audubon Society, and I'm currently the Director of Conservation. I'm Bob Clark's successor. Venice area serves Osprey, Nokomis, Venice, parts of Englewood, and Northport. And we have already formally written Fish and Wildlife Commission urging them to reestablish the Myakka River CWA, and we've urged them to establish the maximum possible buffer possible, because as everyone sees, the CWA is in a highly populated area. It's in the urban area, it's Northport, and there's a lot of boat traffic. And the greatest buffer possible will protect the birds from human intrusion. We also urged you to adopt the proposal to protect the CWA year-round, not just during the 9 months out of the year. Of course, Audubon's mission is to support wildlife habitat, and especially birds. And of course, we support all the breeding birds there, but of course, the critical thing is the wood stork, the federally endangered, federally threatened species. It was endangered up to, I think, 2 years ago, and it was upgraded to threatened status. So you can see this bird is in big trouble. And is the only breeding stork in North America. It's the only breeding stork species we have.